Excuse me. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the grid. Let's see. I was in trouble with this. How do I get the whole grid to come up of everybody?
So if you go to, okay, so this is in full screen mode currently.
Yeah.
So I think if, view right here.
Oh, there we
Top
go.
right-hand corner.
Yeah, see, it
So
disappears.
scroll a little further down. All right, now scroll a little higher. Huh, interesting. Okay, so maybe resize
This
the
needs to be
window.
moved. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, just select OK then. Yeah,
There we go.
All right.
Okay, great.
Yeah, better to see everyone
Great.
than like your own face, right?
Yeah. Yeah, welcome, Alan. I haven't seen you in a long time. I think my early days here. Yes? Yeah. it's good to
Welcome.
see- How are you doing? Good?
Everything good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Great. And lovely to see everybody else here. And everybody, thank you for making the effort to come in person. Thank you so much. Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. Well, not too late, I guess. Story of my life.
It's okay.
I was late. I was born late.
You're in South Florida.
It's not my fault. I was born late. Yeah. I was a little bit late, a few days late, but it was so hard on my mom, just stuff going on with her body. So then they, when babies are late, they induce the labor. So it's, they do this a lot. So they induce the labor, and, but then the doctor went to dinner, and then they wouldn't let her have, the baby was coming out, and they were like, no, 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 and they were like holding her legs together. And so it was like this, like my beginning was like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, it was like, wow, so funny. So poor for my mom. I think it was really not easy for her, but and in those days, the father wasn't there, so they had, do you remember, I'm really dating myself, candy stripers. Yes. Remember candy stripers? So my mother is there in the labor room, and she finally grabs a candy striper by the they had little puffy sleeves sometimes, these little uniforms, and my sister was a candy striper and helps in the hospital. And so she grabbed her and to say, please, like, go in the waiting room and get the tall man. My father's really tall. Get the tall man. Like, we need help right now. So we are going to. My pen is in my. Does somebody have a pen I could borrow? But my favorite pen is in my bag. Okay, that's okay. We're going to go back to the pen, and we're going to discuss this again because some of you weren't here. Thank you. Thanks very much. Great. And I was going to say, and why weren't you here? Okay. So we've been talking about overcoming difficulties in the world. How do we do that? How do we set ourselves up? So we had 2 nights on bodhicitta. 2 nights on bodhicitta, hugely helpful, as most of you know, to develop that good heart. That's what we're presenting. That's what we're showing, that kindness to people. We're all struggling right now. The planet's struggling. It's always been struggling. So in samsara, as ordinary human beings, as we know, that's the situation we set ourselves up for as an ordinary human being, okay? So if we can reach Buddha nature where we're perfect and we're not experiencing the suffering of that, but as long as we're human beings without a direct perception of emptiness, we're going to be experiencing suffering in its various forms. And that's going to manifest externally. That's what our mind is, so it manifests externally. And that's what the world looks like. So now the world has some glorious things, for sure, but it also has war and poverty and suffering like that. And then you have your own personal family and friends things. People are ill, people are confused. So the beginning I mentioned about the practice yesterday. I've been trying to walk people through some ways to practice, because people, each time I show up, let me just, does it help for the recording to pin so I'm the,
Oh, it's going to show up because I have you spotlighted.
you've got
So
it,
once the
you've got it,
recording is
okay.
produced, you'll be the only.
Okay, that's great. I just didn't know if that's easier. Some people don't like to be on the screen to be seen. So we talk about this practice all the time. So each time I show up at every center, right, we hear the teachers repeat and repeat and repeat. And so what happens is people keep saying, how do I do my practice? We keep over and over the same thing. Okay, so it helps sometimes to do it. So we were doing a little bit yesterday. Then they're going to send out this information sheet that I put together of just beginning with some links, booklets, stuff like that. You can try different ones. So we've been talking about that. So we want to sit as if this is our practice. Okay? So just take time, find that comfortable position. And the main thing is you want to have that extension for the spine. Head is slightly tipped forward, the eyes are lightly closed. Your feet are flat on the floor if you're in a chair. You can put a cushion under your feet if it feels better, or any cross-legged position on a cushion. Try not to lean too heavily against the back of the chair. You have this nice open flow of energy through your spine, through your system. And just begin to notice your breath. Doesn't have to be a deep breath, but as we mentioned yesterday, can you notice each inhalation and count 5 to 6 seconds? Each exhalation, 5 to 6 seconds.
Very nice. Very nice, Ling.
Can we silence that? What does that sound? Sorry? So slowly just bringing your awareness to your breath. And again, it's not necessarily deep breathing. We may say to someone to calm them, take a deep breath. I find it's more effective to slow the breathing down. Gentle inhalation, gentle exhalation. And starting at the top of our head, let's move down through our whole body, scanning to relax. Checking places you're holding tension in the body. Take a couple of minutes. Again, checking the brow, the jaw, neck and shoulders. Places we tend to store tension. And use your breathing. So imagine with that inhalation, space opening up, soothing, smoothing out all the wrinkles of that tension. Every exhalation releasing that tense energy. And just letting all of that move out through your feet and toes, all the tightness, all the lists and agendas. Just bring yourself present here into the space. Consider your motivation right now for being here. Your motivation for all the activities of your day. Can we best direct them in a more uplifting, virtuous way? So you may get some information today, in the next few hours, some techniques, things that may help you deepen your practice, balance your mind. And on this path, we're interested in using that information to get us to Buddhahood, full awakening. But that's not the goal. The goal is if we can get there, then we can serve all living beings perfectly, unlimitedly. In the Mahayana tradition, that's the deeper motivation. That's what we're doing everything for. And if you consider that before any activity, it uplifts the activity and can plant a virtuous seed in your mind. Motivation, and at the end of an activity, we dedicate, sealing in all the positive energy. So take a moment, if you like that motivation, feel free to fold it into yours. Just take a moment to set your motivation, at the very least, placing the mind in a most positive space. So in addition, we do some breathing practices, pranayama. So the 9-round breathing, we're going to introduce. Some of you are familiar with this. There are variations on this. I like to start with an exhalation. So if you'd like, you can close off your left nostril. Close off your right nostril. We're going to exhale through the left deeply. Then you're going to switch, close off the left nostril and inhale deeply through the right nostril. And as you do it, imagine you're lessening anger and hatred from your mind stream 3 times. Next round, we're going to reverse. We're going to exhale deeply through the right nostril, closing off the left. Closing off the right nostril, we inhale deeply through the left. And as we do this, imagine you're lessening attachment and desire in the mind 3 times. Our last round, we exhale through both nostrils. We inhale through both nostrils, lessening confusion and ignorance from our mind 3 times. And just place the mind on the breath for a moment. Often it will be pulled away, so if you'd like to just focus on the space outside your nostrils, where the air enters in and leaves the body. All of your attention there. Distractions are going to pull you away. You simply bring the mind back. When you have more time, you can lengthen these sessions. But please visualize now in the space in front of you is Shakyamuni Buddha. He's a few feet in front of you, about 6 inches in height, slightly higher than the level of your forehead. A golden, radiant being facing you. You just visualize as best as you can. Place him on a gorgeous throne, jeweled throne, supported by 8 great snow lions that represent his fearlessness. He's draped in saffron robes, his hair blue-black tied up in a top knot on his head. Full lotus position. Left hand is in his lap holding a begging bowl filled with nectar. Right hand by his right knee, touching the moon cushion on which he sits. On top of the lotus is on top of the throne, an opened multicolored lotus. And on that, sun and moon cushions, so the sun and moon like lying flat. And they represent the 3 principal aspects of the path. The lotus, renunciation. The moon disk, bodhicitta. The sun disk, emptiness. 3 principal aspects of the path is his foundation, and that's the entire lamrim. His right hand, the middle finger touching the moon cushion in the earth-touching mudra of enlightenment. Just feel as if he's really there. This is your virtuous friend. This is a being who was like us ages ago and made a great deal of effort to dismantle suffering in his mind so he could show other people how to do that, because he couldn't bear the suffering, to see the suffering of all these beings. So think about your own interest in Buddhism, your own interest in life. How we often encounter suffering, and we don't want to encounter suffering, and we don't want people to suffer, or any being. So we're not that different than the Buddha. So he made the effort, perfected his mind, has no fear, every perfect quality fully manifest, all knowing. Think about what it would be like to be like that. Let it inspire your heart to practice. You can do this. Possible for everyone in this class, everyone in this class, to make some positive imprints in this life. That's what the Buddha did, life after life after life after life, evolving, evolving, evolving. So in thinking about the Buddha, his qualities, the Dharma that he taught, fortunately for us and our world system, and then the community, the Sangha, that further those teachings, a possible good source for you to protect you from more suffering. So see if you can feel in your heart that connection to the Buddha, going to refuge in a sense to the Buddha, who represents Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And you're fully enlightened, you're all of those things. You can manifest in any way you choose, multiple emanations, just with the purpose to get other beings to that place as quickly as possible. And it brings you great bliss as a byproduct. So if you'd like, place your guru at the Buddha's heart. Any teacher you feel particularly aligned with, just place them small at the heart. Just feel that they're there. And we're going to turn to the Gold Prayer Book. So if you can share, if you have a Gold Prayer Book, page 34. For those of you online, you can listen along unless they have the prayer book they can put online. And taking refuge in generating bodhicitta. So this is the one we do in our own practice, not the one before the teachings. So this is exactly, you're sitting down, you want to do some practice. Here's your practice. So we like to do some prayers that basically lend a little oil to the mind, makes it smooth, the practice. Page 34. Thank you, Anthony. There we go, wonderful. So feel free to join in, if you like. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. O Sangye Chodan Choki Chonamla Chanchu Bardu Dagni Kyap Suchi Kagi Jin Sogi Pe Sonamki Drola Pencher Sangye Druparsho. Sorry, I'm running out of battery. I don't know why. It was all charged up. The next prayer, the four immeasurables. It might be better over here. Yeah, there we go. Does that reach over there? Thank you. The four immeasurables, we're familiar with these prayers. We're going to imagine, people get overwhelmed. So again, this is balance in our mind. There's problems in the world. And then people say, what should I do? Oh, I don't feel like doing anything. Oh, it's horrible. And then we argue, they're bad, they're good. This is good. Send out the four immeasurable. Just visualize streaming out. And you can have it coming out of the Buddha's heart as well. You're one with the Guru. From that heart, streams of light, healing, purifying, pacifying energy going out all over the planet. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. That's immeasurable love. When we want to send that out, you can be in traffic. These are the prayers that you reach for. Okay? Instead of getting irritated, immeasurable love to everybody on the highway, right? Next is immeasurable compassion. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Immeasurable joy. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And immeasurable equanimity. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. So we talked about that Tuesday and Thursday night, equanimity. So those meditations like that, equal regard, equal respect for all beings. Then the very profound, we talked about this yesterday, 7-limb prayer. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence, and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightenment. Again, if you want more information on that, if you missed it yesterday, in this same booklet, and this is also listed on the info I'm giving you that Rebecca or Don will send out. And they gave out yesterday some of the Shakyamuni Buddha practice booklets. So that booklet is in this prayer book, volume 1. It's in this prayer book. So yesterday we were looking at that. And on page, if you're interested, the 7 limbs is 178 to 179 in this prayer book. It gives you a little bit more explanation on the 7 limbs, and that's what we talked about yesterday. Short mandala offering. So again, thinking of the most incredible universe you can imagine, the finest offerings, spreading out, multiplying, filling all of space. And we want to, this is a symbol. In ancient days, they would come with their most precious jewel to get one line of Dharma. Come to the teacher to beg for one line of the Dharma. Now the Dharma's everywhere, nobody's coming, right? So the short mandala, the mandala offerings represented is one of our nundra, one of our preliminary practices. You do a number of them like that. This is the short version. So it's a symbol of, I'd like to have a good meditation. I'd like to have a good session. I'd like to focus well in the class. So in order to do that, I'm making an offering so that you'll bless my mind, and help me with the mantras, with the visualization, with lamra meditation, whatever you're choosing to do. Okay? This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Radha Mandalakam Niratayami. So here, they have dedication prayers, but here what we're going to do is go back to Shakyamuni Buddha, in space in front, okay? In the longer practice in the booklet then there's requests. Okay, and there's formal requests you make, okay? But you can put it into your own words. What do you need right now? Take a moment as if you're talking to your best friend that has a highly realized mind and ask them for what you need right now. And imagine Shakyamuni Buddha is very happy to help, and he comes to the crown of our head. So you can let go of the throne and just have him come above your head, facing the same direction as you. This is a really good time to insert Lamrim, analytical meditation on the Lamrim. So yesterday we were exploring precious human rebirth a little bit. You can continue, as we were talking a little bit yesterday. Just analyze, think about, deeply reflect. If no Buddha existed, this is one of the advantages we have, is a Buddha came to, existed in our world system, Shakyamuni Buddha. It's one of the endowments, one of the 10 endowments or richnesses. The second thing is he taught. There will be other times, other eons, a Buddha will manifest and get enlightened. A being will get enlightened, become a Buddha, fully awake. They won't tell you how they got there. The conditions don't exist for them to teach. But Shakyamuni Buddha teaches. Not only did he teach, he taught the entire path, including Tantra. So we have everything accessible to us right now. And a third endowment is the teachings are furthered, for instance, by practitioners, monks and nuns, people that create centers like Thubten Kunga Center, people that help volunteer at this center year after year after year for so many years, keeping it going, contributing, offering their help, their donations, their time. Just think about those three situations right now from your own personal experience. What would the world be like for you if the Buddha didn't exist? What would you use to dismantle your problems when they arise? What would you be doing? What would you be turning to? Think of all the images in this room. Without the Buddha having existed, none of them would exist. There wouldn't be any His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, or any of our other great teachers. No word, Buddha. Can you imagine? So imagine Shakyamuni Buddha on your crown is very happy to help us clear our problems, help to grant whatever you are asking for, or at least help you to wash away obstacles to that and help you absorb some of his blessings and realizations. So imagine light coming from his heart and from that guru at his heart. That most exquisite jewel, and it begins to explode out of all the pores of his body, and then flowing down through the crown of our heads as we recite Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra. So it's a simple mantra. If you need it, it is in the book. It's on page 183, if anyone needs it in the book. But it's quite a short mantra, and we'll chant some together with these light rays coming down. Just feel you're absorbing them, feeling the bliss, feeling the energy. We'll chant some together, and then some you can do on your own. Tayata Om Mune Mune Maha Mune Soha Tayata Om Mune Mune Maha Mune Soha Tayata Om Mune Mune Maha Mune Soha. And you can recite at any pace you like, as best as you can, focusing on the visualization. Tayata Om Mune Mune. Tayata Om Mune Mune Maha Mune Soha. And imagine the Buddha is very, very happy with our practice and dissolves from the edges of the visualization into the center, into a radiant drop of light that melts into our crown. Just feel all the blessings of Shakyamuni Buddha's holy body, speech, and mind. All those blessings from your guru, from your teacher, planting some seeds of insight for future experiences for you, and merging you with that expansive consciousness, that wisdom that pervades everything. Please relax. Slowly open your eyes, and we can also think if you're finishing a practice you dedicate, may any benefit from doing that practice help me to get enlightened quickly so I can benefit all living beings. So it's just a way, I just wanted to show you there's a practice for you. And just so it helps sometimes to just do it together, because people get the words and the booklets and they go, I don't know what I'm doing. And you just try, you just strike out. You get a booklet and you just strike on with a couple pages at a time. Read the pages. Do you understand? Ask somebody at the center. If you don't understand, ask your questions like that. But you just forge ahead, you know? Forge ahead. You can't make too many mistakes. The only things you want to be more careful with is when you're reciting mantras. You want to make sure you're reciting them properly. Because once you get into bad habits, it's hard to undo that mantra in your mind. Like that. But as far as the text and things, it gives you motivations, all the things that I've listed on that page. And you just try like that. Like I said, get a buddy from the class. Introduce yourself to somebody, meet somebody new, set something up where you'll check each other, you'll help each other. It's the best way it works if you want to do it like that. No excuses. Okay. So I go over this a lot because I just think it's important. Many people come up, how do I set up a practice? I've been trying. And so again, we just have to launch out there at times and make the effort. We make a lot of effort, just not necessarily in the right directions like that. So that's one thing, is you have this, you'll start sitting, having this practice. I've mentioned this many times before, talked about it yesterday, the usefulness of coming back from work where I was agitated at a job I had. You know, you have issues with people at work. You have issues in your life with somebody, a coworker, an employee. You know, somebody in your family is driving you crazy. There's lots of problems like that. It's normal. That's samsara. It's normal. Okay? So then the practice. So I came back from work, new Buddhist, not even really a Buddhist, but in setting up, I had a little place I felt comfortable and safe. But I didn't know how to meditate. I didn't know what I was doing. Okay, but it just gave me a place, come home from work, I'm gonna go out with friends later, but I got agitated from work. I just crawl into the space and sit there. I light a candle. I didn't know it. I didn't have any books. We didn't have any books then, you know. So then I just think about work. I just think about work. What happened at work? That guy at work. You know. So what happens is, after 10 minutes, that calms down. You're not so agitated. So, and then I go, oh, I'm supposed to follow the breath. I heard that in a class. So then I do that for 5 minutes. I couldn't follow the breath much, right? I'm just saying, I'm a normal person. My mind would be off, but calm down. My mind would be like, okay, I'm okay. This actually feels nice to be still for a moment. We're never still. So I started liking that. And then I went finally after 15 minutes or so. So what's with the guy at work? You know, then I analytically go around him. You know, what's the problem that, you know, then I notice, and what you can notice in your mind, in the face of somebody irritating. What are you doing in your mind, face of someone irritating? What's your mind telling you? Aversion. Sorry? Aversion. Aversion. Yeah, and what's it telling you about the person? They're bad. They're bad. And you're clear about every bad quality they have, right? It's really clear. So we talked about that yesterday. You know, so and then I realize I'm over exaggerating all the bad qualities. There's more to this person. So then just sitting there saying, well, you know, this is painful because I have a project to do with him. So that's really, you know, does he have any good qualities? Okay, this is analytical. I'm analyzing. Does he have any good qualities? Couldn't really see them. Does he have any good qualities? No. Does he have any good qualities? I mean, this is what my mind's doing. You know, I'm going, you know, why do I have to think about him? Well, because I have to work with him. You know, and I'm not enjoying working with him. You can enjoy working with him. You have to sometimes do the work on your cushion. Does he have any good qualities? Yes, he does. Then I made a little list. He really did have good qualities. I went, he does. My aversion won't let me see the good qualities. But now I'm in my little space, so I feel better. So I'm like, he does have some good qualities. Then you make a deal with yourself. Tomorrow I go in, I have a meeting with him. Focus on the good qualities. Try as best as you can to focus on the good qualities. It will be hard. That's your job. That's my commitment as a Mahayana Buddhist. Even as a Buddhist, kindness is a big part of Buddhism. Kindness. So how do you find the kind heart? Giving people that we say the benefit of the doubt, okay? Some kindness is me as a Buddhist, that overextension, trying to build harmonious relationships with as many people as possible. Sorry, but if you're in this room, that's your job. I don't care if you're retired, I just gave you a new job, okay? But I'm serious. This is what we have to do right now, because we see what goes on in Gaza. We see what's happening in Ukraine. We read about these things. Then there's disasters on top of that we can't control, weather disasters and things. But we see these things. So I need to make my little world here peaceful and happy. That has a ripple effect. If you're irritated and then you go out there and then you yell at somebody in the supermarket or the cashier or your waiter, your server, right? It spills out on somebody else. So you need to take care of this, right? For all living beings, for the benefit of the planet. That's our job. Sorry. If you want another job, find something else. There are other things, but not something that's going to get you ultimately happy. So then you evaluate and you go in and it's a little scary with the person and you're a little bit irritated and then they do that irritating thing. And then and then again, mind control. You have to control your mind. It's the only thing you can control. So then you're going to stop, go back and go, I know that they do that. And I'm saying this in my mind, I bring up one of the good qualities. And unfortunately for me, I remember this first meeting, and I mentioned this yesterday, he had a nice colored shirt on that I thought was really nice, sincerely, gave him a compliment. So he liked that. We like to get complimented, sincerely. So then suddenly he's a little more favorable to me, doing less of the irritating stuff. That seriously, we work like that, slowly, but, and it can be a little hard, I was a little scared. I'm the new person there, but you work like that. You just have to, and then I go back to my cushion and went, okay, so how did that go today? Well, I shouldn't have said that one thing, but everything else was good. So let me go back over his good qualities. You do it 80 times, sorry. That's an analytical meditation on the Lam Rim. It takes effort and repetition. The teachers are always repeating the same things over and over because it's not sinking. Then we're not practicing that. So that's so I just wanted to explain how the process works and how the sitting practice is a nice component. Then we have our study, our practice, our reading, like that. So in other things we talked about, I started to talk about emptiness, and I use that example as the pen that many of you have heard before. So I just wanted to explain again because I wanted to go on today, because we got to not finding the pen in any of its parts. I think most of you are familiar. Just to catch you up a little bit, if you weren't here yesterday, is when I hold this in my hand, what is this? Pen. Okay, does anybody here say it's something else? Okay, so we're all in agreement this is a pen, okay? So that means we have a conventional agreement, that we acknowledge for human beings with our language, most of it's English right now, even though I know many people are not Americans by birth or speak other languages, but as English, we're going to call this pen. We agree, we understand what it is. It functions as a pen, it writes. And then we talked about how the pen comes into existence. This is what emptiness asks you, because emptiness dismantles all the negativity in your mind. So if you can consider with all your other practice, and then you keep considering when you see something really awful, and remember, it doesn't inherently exist like that. It is appearing in the external reality, which happens to be your reality if you're seeing it, okay, based on the conditions set in your mind. You have karmic imprints to see that thing out there, okay? So how you interpret it then relays how you act, okay? And what we'd like to do is be gentle with everything we're interpreting. Now, there's some really horribly unfortunate things that go on in your life or on the planet, like that. But Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teaching, it all comes from the mind. Everything comes from the mind. That's the hardest thing for us to swallow. So emptiness is saying there is no concrete, inherent, intrinsic value to anything you're experiencing. But we experience everything like that, reified, concretized. My cup, my coffee, my computer, my kid, my car. Huge ownership, possessiveness, and if anybody, God forbid, interferes with that agenda, harms them in any way, you're going to have a meltdown. You're going to freak out, cave in on yourself, or lash out and attack somebody back. That's our planet. That's what's going on in Gaza. That's what's going on in Ukraine. You know, it's a misunderstanding is really all it is. Okay, grave misunderstanding. Some of them are bigger than others. Okay, it's a terrible misknowing of reality. K-N-O-W, misknowing. That's fundamental ignorance. That's where all that stuff comes from. That's where all your suffering comes from, is that. Okay, so we have to understand emptiness a little bit. And just what you do in your normal life, if you go, I don't have a direct perception of emptiness, you poke at it. You poke at it. Just so you basically are, you know, at times looking around when you get some space in your mind, the more you meditate on emptiness, the more you study and think about emptiness or read about emptiness or come to classes on emptiness, you start thinking more and more like that. So your mind is soaked a little bit in that. So you're living a little bit like, I see this kind of thing externally, but I understand that I'm seeing it in a certain way due to my karmic imprints in my mind that are arising, causing me to have a wonderful experience with this right now. But it's interesting how my husband hates it and is not happy right now. So again, practically then, I can't just go, well, it's all empty and you don't really understand that. No, you have to take care and realize, but in your mind, you don't get as dramatically engaged. So then we can better support people and help people. That's the whole point. Okay. So when we look at the pen, we analyze, and emptiness asks you to analyze how things exist, And people go, well, why? Who cares? So I'll explain. So there's schools, Tibetan tenets, philosophical schools that explain how things arise in dependence on other things. They come first from the Hinayana schools, Theravadan Buddhism, okay, where people are very motivated to reach nirvana, which is a permanent cessation of all your mental afflictions, but it's not enlightenment, okay? But what they believe is things exist based on causes and conditions, how the pen got here, causes and conditions. And we also have karmic causes and conditions that are affecting everything we do. There's always a subsequent result to every activity of your body, speech, and mind. We've heard that before. Karma, action, okay? Causes and conditions of how the pen got here, we discussed yesterday. So ancient days, people had minerals, they wrote on cave walls, started recording their history. Fast forward, ink was developed, pens that dipped in the ink, and they wrote. Fast forward, plastic developed, somebody created a factory and said, I'm going to mass produce plastic pens like this and make money. That's how this pen got here, okay? So causes and conditions, I think we get that, we understand. Okay? Second thing, another school says things depend on their parts. They arise in dependence on their parts. We never think about this in relation to anything. They arise in dependence on their parts, by depending on their parts. We're pretty clear about the parts of the pen, you know? Little plastic thing here, it's got a plastic container, plastic tube. Inside, some of you could see there's an ink cartridge. Well, that's got ink in it. There's a spring, does this. Then there's a point down here, metal. It's got a thing on the edge. I could undo it. Oops, now I broke it, okay. But you get the idea, the pen, because it's got an inside and an outside. Here's the ink cartridge, okay. So I just want to ask people, is this pen? No, some people shaking their head, no, okay. Is this pen? No? Sorry, I'm holding up for the people online, holding up the, what about this? This pen? No? Okay. Anybody differ? Everybody with us? So I'm going to jump right now, and this is where I left off yesterday. Do you agree with me that we're not finding pen in any of the parts of the pen? Are you finding pen in any of the parts of the pen? No, okay. Not finding pen in any parts of the pen. I put the parts together. Is there a pen there? Okay. What we say in Buddhism, there's no inherently existent pen there at all. Okay. And the reason is, what we do is we make a mistake, and then you go, well, I didn't find pen in any of the parts of the pen. Isn't it interesting how you can put those parts together, the parts you did not find pen in. And then there's a pen there? Really? You just looked and you said there was no pen in any of the parts. How is it you put the parts together and a pen appears? Right? What's that? It's magic, right? This is where we get hooked. So what happens is, and you really have to be specific and analyze and look at your, okay, so we just looked at all the parts. There was no pen in any of the parts. So then we have a mistake and we think the collection of the parts is the pen. It looks like pen, okay? So you have to go back. And I remember I mentioned yesterday, I dismantled my car in my mind in a driveway where I was living. I dismantled, car's big, solid object. I had the tires there, the windshield. I totally dismantled this car to really, and there was no car in any of the parts. I did it over and over and over and over. So again, if we put these parts together, according to Tibetan Buddhism, the highest school, Prasangika Madhyamaka, the highest school says, what appears to your consciousness is a valid basis of designation. A valid basis of valid means it's valid to be labeled pen. This is not valid to be labeled pen. This is not a valid basis of designation for my mind to label pen on this. Okay, that has a different label. Okay, the highest school, what it says is the most subtle dependent arising is a mental label on a valid basis of designation. That's how something comes into existence, based on my mind labeling. So, and the way it labels is my eye consciousness, in this case, visual, because we're looking, my eye consciousness takes in information, data, or data, you say, right? Takes in certain information, okay, based on my karma being a human being in this part of the world. Okay, and it sees a certain configuration, valid basis of designation, again, okay? And then when I see that configuration, there's a labeling process by my mind, okay? And what happens is my ignorance covers over the gap that my mind takes in the valid basis of designation, sees that, there's a gap, and then my mind labels, almost instantaneously. My ignorance causes me to miss the gap that I'm labeling. So immediately pen appears to my consciousness, but not a merely labeled pen, okay? An inherently existent pen appears to my consciousness due to ignorance, due to fundamental ignorance. And all that means is I have confusion in my mind from previous moments of the ignorance in my mind, from previous moments of that ignorance, previous moments back, another cause of ignorance, because I haven't had a direct perception of emptiness yet, okay? And so as a result, again, valid basis of designation, which I'm going to call in this case, plastic cylindrical tube filled with ink that writes. Plastic cylindrical tube filled with ink that writes. See it like that. Really look at it like that. Plastic cylindrical tube filled with ink that writes. Now look at the pen. Appearing any different from the beginning when I held it up? You couldn't see in the beginning.
No, I can't see if there is any difference.
You don't see any difference. Okay. Anybody see any difference? It's not a little softer in your mind when you're looking at valid? Okay, that's okay. Okay, but we play with that, basically, looking at valid basis of designation, plastic, cylindrical tube filled with ink that writes, okay? There's a gap, my mind labels, then my mind labels pen. Tibetan Buddhism says, then the pen comes into existence. So that's one of the problems. But what appears to my consciousness is an inherently existent pen. For all time, unchanging, solidly existent pen. That's one problem. It's one part of our problem. That ignorance, okay? The grasping. And the ignorance, it causes me to see it as solidly existent, inherently existent. Doesn't exist like that at all. But due to my ignorance, that's the way I see it. Here's your second problem. This is a big problem. After it appears inherently existent to me, to my consciousness, okay? Then the grasping comes. Mine. That's the source of all your suffering. So you have self-grasping, self-grasping, self-cherishing. Okay? So first I'm missing it due to ignorance, not seeing clearly at all, imputing inherent existence on it, and then because it's inherently existent, solidly existent, then my kid, my car, my coffee, my agenda, my family, my house, those kind of things. So you miss that. Now, granted, it doesn't mean you don't protect those things. It doesn't mean we don't have a practical reality we're moving through. Okay. But it's when problems show up. When problems show up, and they will show up again and again because we're in samsara. When they show up, what will be your response? What do you want your response to be? Okay? Questions? People okay? Understand a little? I know this is confusing. If it's the first time you've heard it, this is all new. So you slowly start to read some beginning books on emptiness, get to some classes on emptiness. I think even on the page, the information I send out, I have a meditation I lead on emptiness, but read, if you're new to it, read first, read the simpler books, see if you understand. It totally rattles everything we've ever heard. When I first heard it, I didn't understand, because we reify everything. It's the way the world goes around. This is the way it exists. This is mine, don't touch that, don't do this. We'd be so much more peaceful if we just understood that things don't exist that way. They're merely labeled by the mind, everything. So look around the room. We did this yesterday. Look around the room. Is there anything in the room that is not a product that comes from something else? Right, everything comes from something else. But it doesn't appear that way. You say rug. It's like a solidly existent rug there. You have a rug in your house. Somebody spills wine on the rug. How do you feel? You get a little tweak. Some people get really upset. My rug, and you don't understand there's fibers. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't go and get the stain remover and you have to do your stuff. How bent out of shape do you want to get by all these things? You can have a rug. You can constantly be, this is a result of karma in my mind. I had a seed in my mind to have a person come to the house and spill wine on the carpet. That's all that's going on. So if I want to get upset about it, all I'm doing is planting more negative seeds in my consciousness. It doesn't mean I have to like that the wine got spilled on the rug, but stuff happens. That's minor. You go, you get your stain remover, you go to the thing, you tend to the rug, that's it. Or you decide you get part of it replaced. Is it a hassle? It is. That karmic seed was in your mind. So what we want to do is dismantle and purify all the negative karmic seeds in our mind, and then we want to enhance all the positive qualities in the mind so that those qualities keep producing better and better and better karmic results. And also habits where what I'm choosing are better choices, happier choices, things that make me happier, and letting go all the other stuff. When there's an irritation, when there's an interference. Now what happens is you have to start practicing with the little things, the wine on the carpet. That's little, that's mundane. Somebody dings your car in a parking lot, that's little. Okay. You want to practice with the little things so that your mind becomes more fluid, smoother. So when the big things come, your kid is sick, somebody dies that you love, loved one dies. How are you going to be with that? There's more reality operating in your world system. And then there's bigger things, and people say, oh, the planet and this, and then we have this election, and then we're going to do this, and I met with my cousin, moved to Fort Lauderdale. He's from Israel. So you can imagine, So we had a whole discussion, very interesting discussion. He's 30, and I really enjoyed talking with him. And so again, a very volatile area. He served in the Israeli army. He's going to go back soon, not to serve. He's living here, but just that whole discussion. You end up with something really big, very volatile, separating families, destroying relationships. So again, we don't want to go there. So you can see, so I could have a nice conversation with him, discuss things very fluidly, very nicely, spaciously, when in some ways I don't agree with everything that he might be saying, or agree with some of the things. So this is how we go around harmoniously on the planet, like that. Make sense? What you question? You had a question?
I did. So do we look at the rug like you looked at the pen and say that it's ignorance that I am seeing, calling that a rug?
Well, one way you could look at it is you live in your house, you've got carpeting, flooring, whatever. Is it's nice to kind of just notice you come home and you look at your floor, tile floor, whatever, and just realize that it's made up of a lot of different parts, a lot of different tiles. The tiles are made up of atoms, molecules moving, so it creates a little bit of a softness. The world has no edges. More, it's not like you're doing it all day long, but I did have a friend that was on retreat many years ago, and she was really focused on emptiness in the retreat. So she literally went around like every break moment she had, and she was like, so I'm taking the merely imputed knife to get the merely imputed peanut butter on the merely, just because that's what she wanted to work with her mind, to remember that everything was merely labeled by the mind. But, I find that a bit extreme on one level. It's more just if I'm in my mind thinking the peanut butter ran out, you're right? And I'm at a center. I wonder if they have more peanut butter. I forgot to tell them the other day that I needed more peanut butter. It'll take a week for them to get new peanut butter up here. So I wonder, but it's stuff like that. Those are little things. But if I can just say, okay, well, peanut butter ran out, I'll put it on the list, I'll give them the note, so there's a fluidity with things where I'm less tweaked by those things. And I'm also realizing karma plays a part because I created all this. So when something interferes, when something gets damaged, when something gets harmed, I had the seed in my consciousness. Now, this is not about blaming you. So people said, the worst case scenarios where somebody mentioned to me her daughter was raped and somebody else's kid has cancer and somebody's husband has this or the wife, these are really serious things. And that's really hard to keep the mind balanced and to not blame and to not want to get back. And then you cave in on yourself and you're depressed forever and you feel like you're a victim. And then it also leads to paranoia and anxiety and all those things. So with emptiness, it's kind of acknowledging I must have had the seed in my consciousness for this incredibly horrible thing to have occurred. We have beginningless mind in Buddhism. There's no beginning, there's no start to the mind. As a result, and this is a Buddhist belief, reincarnation, as a result, and we say that every moment of mind, all the thoughts are made up of smaller moments of consciousness or mind. If you notice your own trajectory of thoughts, each thought seems to have another thought that came before it. There's another thought that came before it. You see there's a chain, there's a connection, right? If I go all the way back to my conception, if all these other things had a chain, what about the moment of conception? Did it just pop in there, or could it have a previous moment that caused it? That's what Buddhism says. So you go back, no beginning, that means countless past lives. That means we've done everything. We've been murderers, we've been all these things. So not laying a trip, it's just acknowledging all these possibilities are in my mind that create a certain makeup in my mind, karma, imprint in my most subtle consciousness. And that's the thing that reincarnates. So that's still coming out. So all I need to do is keep improving thoughts, speech, activities, improving as best as I can. But I am a human being. That means I will make mistakes. I'm just trying not to make as grave of ones that I may have made in the past. So when a really grave thing happens to you or your family, which I hope it doesn't, is at least acknowledging, because it lessens hostile reactions, keeps my mind more balanced, helps me to then be more able to take care of what needs to be taken care of in a balanced way. It doesn't mean you don't assert yourself at times. And I'll give you an example. If something like that happens to one of your kids, or your kid is sick and you're in the hospital, right? And there's times you feel, with the medical services in the States right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, this has been my experience. I was took care of my parents, and you have to be your own advocate, right? They don't follow up anymore. They don't have the time for the most part. Depends. There's a few doctors, if you've had them for 30 years, most of the things, and I've had friends that said, I thought the doctor was going to call and let me know. And I said, you need to sort it yourself and figure out when you need, and so there's people I know that with their kid with cancer, they were there and they didn't feel the doctors were were hearing them or doing what needed to happen. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, it happens more for women. Women are less heard. But now there's female doctors. But often a guy can more, like, I need this done. And they did studies where they seem to get the better care. So you assert, so you speak up. So with my dad, there were things when I just said, oh, I thought we were going to do that other test that you mentioned. And then the doctor was like, oh, right, okay. But, they forgot, but I'm like, okay. And they go, oh, yeah, we'll get that scheduled. But had I not said anything, and then there were things where the doctors are too busy. So the big medical report based on cancer, he's telling me my father had cancer in a place he didn't have cancer. And I said, well, where is that? Can you just give me the page number? This multi-page report. And then he shows me this thing. And I said, but on page 4, it says here. And then he looks and he goes, oh, yeah, you're right. He doesn't have cancer there. So again, you really, so it doesn't mean you don't assert and just try, but how did I do it? Gently. I wasn't angry at the doctor. I just know the situation. So I do know people with our medical system, they're angry. They're like, it should be a certain way. I have a friend in education, dear friend, and she sets herself up for, she has very, very good ideas of these dynamic education systems in the arts she could do with young kids. The ideas are brilliant. She's in the Los Angeles School District. Best of luck with that. They don't have the funding or the time to do it. It just, for years, she's been talking about this. It's just so, and she's struggling with money right now. And I just said, it's such a great idea, but I think you need to just do something more realistic and just get this kind of job that, because you've been talking about this for 30 years. Like, I don't think it's, you're either going to make it happen or just find something where you can be employed. So there are times we're in some other reality and you just need to get to it, figure it out, and then take action. But we want to be gentle. I want to be compassionate, And so I also was saying to her, you just have to accept that the education system in the Los Angeles public school district, they're not going to be able to do it. Like, are you aware of that? She doesn't accept. So there's this disconnect and she's miserable. So it's more like I accept more what our healthcare system is. Like, I know I've been involved in it with family members. I accept it. It doesn't make me happy. It's not great at times, but you figure out a way to maneuver what you need to do as best as you can because it's samsara. It's not going to be a perfect system. So could I get my parents the care I felt they needed? I think we did a pretty good job. A couple major, like, world-renowned whomever made mistakes that we were, samsara. Not gonna, get angry at them, blame them. But one of the things I felt, I talked to my siblings at the end, these 2 doctors, is I just said to them, I kind of just feel to write a letter, to just explain what, and they said, yeah, that's a good idea. Well, but it wasn't blaming. It was just a nice letter saying, and for me, that's all I needed to do to let go. And I just said, yeah, I just wanted to write a letter. And they read the letter. They said, oh, it's a really good letter. Let's send, we signed it. And we just kind of wanted to say to these doctors, in a sense, like, just to think about, if you could make more time. And, because the medical profession, if the doctors stood up to the insurance companies, they would have more time for everybody where they'd see things. But I didn't expect any result. But, kind of saying, here's some suggestions. And we have other doctor friends that are willing to step up to say something, and just saying, here's what went on, and then I just let it go, So I'm not that disturbed, things happen. So that's the whole thing, is can we move forward where I'm realizing I've got a karmic makeup, and that's causing me to experience this. That's what makes our reality. So right now, all of us have karmic seeds in us. Especially if it disturbs you, let's say what's going on in Gaza or Ukraine, you have karmic seeds that are causing that situation across the planet like that. And I'm not saying it's my fault and all that, but I have a karmic seed in there to experience war on the planet. I don't like war. I don't like people dying, and I don't like school shootings, but I have some karma, some seeds got planted in my mind to take rebirth through a world system like this. So, and here's another thing I've been talking to some Buddhists about is, you're in the planet now and looking at the age of a lot of us. Some of us are similar ages. Some people are saying 50, 60, 70 years old, well, we're going to be out soon, out of this world system. Like it seems like it's kind of a mess and it's not going along that well. How long will it sustain? But we're soon departing. Okay? You could come back to planet Earth. What's that going to be like? Like what, I was saying to somebody, but we could come. Now the thing is, there's some glorious things on planet Earth. Really, truly. They're not getting airtime. Okay? They're not getting airtime on social media or in the news. There's some beautiful things about this planet. Okay? And yet there's some to come back and start all over with the system, how it is and things. And, a few of us were saying, oh, that's really scary. And it could happen, especially if you're really attached to planet Earth. And there are some things that are, so just thinking about, so again, it's me and my mind with the broader motivation. I want to really benefit all beings, but with me and my mind, what seeds can I continue to plant? What habits can I make so that that's what's showing up? That's what's showing up is a little bit better each time. It's not going to happen like that. Maybe you're not enlightened tomorrow, okay? Because that's what we want as Americans. It needs to happen right away. It has to be easy, okay? That's not this path. But again, if you keep making seeds, regular, habitual, over and over, and seeds, then each life better, better, better. And I know one Lama, we were in a small retreat with Chuden Rinpoche. There was some teaching he was giving to a few of us, and somebody was asking his question. And then he said, think of countless eons. Like your practice over countless eons. And that made it easier from thinking, okay, I just want to we do want to keep moving forward, as far as evolving. We do want to try to do that. So think about your habits now. Which of them benefit? Which of them benefit your mind and which of them don't? Can you reduce what doesn't benefit, but realistically reduce? Meaning, okay, you're not going to cut out all social media maybe. You're not going to cut. Who was just joking with me about, because I'm a big New York Times crossword puzzle fan, but the New York Times apparently has all these puzzles now. I don't know if people do, and some of my friends, and they said, oh, I just do all the puzzles. I don't read the New York Times, I just do all the puzzles. And they were talking about how long it takes them to do, and I was kind of laughing and I went, oh, really? Like it's kind of this joke. So think about, can you lessen a little bit of these time-wasting things and shift it into, I'm going to read that book. I keep meaning to read that book, or I am going to sign up for that module and find out a little bit more about karma or the mind, or just, take it in small increments. You do a module, take a break for a couple of weeks. You have a family thing, take a break, and then come back to it and say, definitely going to get back to that I'm going to look for the thing in July. I'm going to start that. And you can do a lot of them are online. So you do them at your own pace. It's your mind. Just see, more understanding of emptiness, more meditations on bodhicitta. We talked about that on Tuesday and Thursday. Okay, and I meant to say, okay, so we have until 2:15. 2:15? Okay. So we are going to take a break. We're not having a long lunch break in this session, but we are ending at 2:15. So I just want to ask if there's any questions, and then I'm going to go into some other things, but maybe we could take a break soon. Any questions, though, first? And any questions online? Let's see, somebody's got.
I was just recapping what was asked.
Okay, do we look at the rug?
That question was covered.
Oh, was
I
covered.
just posted it online for people
Oh,
who
thank
might have
you.
not heard.
Okay.
But I did have a question, Darlene.
Yes,
So
please.
we broke down the pen and talked about like how we inherently perceive it. We're still inherently perceiving it as pen, though, right? Even though we just went through that exercise.
Ignorant consciousness, when I hold this up, I can't say what you're experiencing, I don't know your mind, but ignorant consciousness, human consciousness normally sees this as an inherently existent pen.
But we wouldn't say that, assuming I'm not enlightened, I wouldn't say that I perceive this as not inherently existent now that I went through that exercise.
Say that
I
again?
wouldn't say that I've successfully perceived it as not being inherently existent.
No, I mean, I'll put it this way.
I'm just
You're
trying to get that
probably not,
nuance.
until you have a direct perception of emptiness, when you have a direct perception of emptiness, you would perceive it as non-inherently existing. You'd see it entirely differently. You'd also have a lot of realizations in your mind that come immediately. path of seeing, what's called. That's a third of the 5 paths to enlightenment, the path of seeing, when you see emptiness directly. But you see it in meditation. So not looking and analyzing, you're in meditation on emptiness. With Shine already, you've already got calm abiding to enter the path of seeing. Calm abiding is concentration. You've perfected your concentration. Calm abiding, you're able to place your mind on one object and keep it there for 4 hours unwaveringly. That's calm abiding. When you've attained it, there's 9 stages to get there. Mind becomes incredibly flexible, blissful, but the reason you need the concentration of the 4 hours, to hold it somewhat to that time, is you're then going to use it to meditate on emptiness. That's, in our tradition, why you want calm abiding. You don't just want it to, because you become clairvoyant, mind supple, incredibly flexible, blissful. Okay, so other traditions have calm abiding. Okay, but ours is to get emptiness directly. It's not just to have a blissful mind state, to stay in that mind state. That can be dangerous. You actually want to use it in emptiness meditation. You need the penetrative insight to get emptiness directly in meditation. And then you're going to build on that. Then you want to walk along the side of the bodhisattva levels, the bhumis, the good heart. So you need emptiness, your view, okay, and you need the skillful means of bodhicitta to get enlightened. The bodhisattva bhumis lead to bodhicitta. Those are the 2 wings of the bird, emptiness, bodhicitta, that you absolutely have to become fully realized, a Buddha, like that. So the reason so what's happening is in meditation, so if you're just analyzing, as we analyze here, I'm getting a sense of, I'm poking at the pen, so the pen's concreteness dissolves a little bit, that the rug's concreteness dissolves a little bit. That's all I was trying to get you to see when I said, can you see it as a valid basis of designation instead of pen, like that. And it takes time for the mind to catch up because we're soaked. How old are you? 40, 50, 60, 70 years old? You're soaked in reification, concretization. In fact, we're not only soaked in it in our mind, it's reinforced continually. Don't you dare harm my kid. People fight at high schools over stuff like that. He punched my son, my son on the football team, it's like everything's concretized. You have the President of the United States, I remember in 9/11, standing at the site of the destruction of the towers, George Bush Jr., and saying, well, we're going to show them. So we got attacked and let's vengeance. If you're a little kid, you go, that's the right response. And then the whole country went, yeah, that's the right response. Get somebody back. So we're brainwashed. So it's very hard. So what I'd like to do is I need to wash my brain, and not the brain, but the mind. Brain is physical. Tibetan Buddhism, mind is not. It's not the brain. So I need to clean my mind from views like that keep me in prison. But it's also adverse to everything we've known. And you can't kind of go out there and start telling your whole family because they won't understand. This is a high teaching. This is profound teaching. Does that make sense, though, what I'm saying? So again, and when I say this word brainwash, people go, oh, they get scared. But, early on when I got into Dharma, I had a friend that, has had trouble with her life and stuff. So she started accusing me. I found this thing I really liked, found this jewel. I went to his teaching and I tried, again, you have to put it into practice. So I heard about meditation. I tried, I didn't know how to do it, but I read a book. I like that. I asked another question. It just seemed to be making sense to a lot of things in my life. But slowly, this is a gradual path. It seemed to be making sense. So I moved along, and then this friend so then she said, I think you've been brainwashed. Okay. So then I thought about it, and I was very wary of cults when I got into Buddhism. I was very skeptical and very checking, I checked do you keep our shoes? I told that story the other day. I was really very wary of stuff like that. And I'm not really woo-woo about, the ghosts were running across the room. So I really checked. And then I thought about what she said, and then we discussed it a little bit. And then I thought, I need to wash my mind. But not brainwash the way she thought. Give all your money to this person and follow me and drink this. And no, you don't do that. It's just check your mind. If you're happy with some of the habits, they benefit you, they're uplifting, you're helping others, enhance those. Fantastic. Then you've got some nice imprints. Build on those. Because you meet some people and they're just so kind, right? We meet some people, they don't even need to be Buddhists. You meet some people and you go, wow, I like her. She's so nice. She's genuinely nice. Like, so you have qualities like that in you, build on those. Then you have some qualities and you go, I don't really like when I do that. Okay? Work on those. Figure out why you do that. What are the triggers? What are the imprints? What's happened? And then we do purification practices and we clean away. And I've done many of them and they work. They work. I notice my mind after doing one of these preliminary practices. You know, I have the advantage where I've been in retreat, sometimes doing them full time, couple months, 4 months, whatever. And I see the effect. It has an effect. Is it small effect? Small effect. But there's definitely an effect. There is a shift. Some of you have talked to me about that. We meet and you go, I do think there's some shift when I do that practice. So build on that. You know, and that deepens your confidence in the path. And you go, okay, I think it's, then if you get advice, fortunately I had advice from a highly realized being, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, but there's other teachers, you know, and if you seek the advice, follow the advice. If you're asking for the advice, follow the advice, put it into practice as best as you can, right? And note, and then check, you have to check your mind, right? Because if you don't like what's going on, you don't feel you're making much progress, but you are making effort, then find something else. Maybe this isn't the path for you. But for me, it really has convinced me over time, based on the practices that, and I'm not any special person. You know, you can do this. I was working, I was just like anybody else. So it just takes the time, set the priorities, and you'll notice some things. And then some of you can do some of the stuff together, and you have a buddy, and you kind of go, and that's what we did. I have some Dharma friends. We got in around the same time, and we'd compare notes, and we go off and do retreat, and we come back and go, what were you doing? How did it go? You know, and then we say, well, I got into trouble here. This was really hard, and go, oh yeah, I had a hard time with that too. Here's what I did, and we help each other. Question? Yes. And what's your name?
Luciana.
Luciana.
So when you say how things inherently exist, the example was the pen. Things, and what about sentient beings? How my cat exists, how I exist. Are we making the same?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing.
So that myself or my cat or any sentient being does not exist in that way.
Doesn't exist inherently at all. So again, on the information that Don or Rebecca will send out that I had put together, there is an emptiness meditation audio, I believe, that they asked me to do at one of our retreats, right? So I just put that in there of how to meditate on emptiness of the self, myself. But you can find it in the books too, and it's helpful to read some of just the little shorter emptiness sections in some of the Lam Rim books to first understand what they're talking about. And read it over and over. Don't just read it one time. It's a very hard concept to understand. But then I have how to meditate on it according to a very traditional 4-part analysis like that. But it takes time to understand. So it's the same with the self. I don't exist inherently. Causes and conditions, I depend on causes and conditions that got me here. What were those? My parents decided to have a child, right? Their parents decided to have them. Like these are causes and conditions. Parts are my body and mind. I depend on that, my body and mind. So if Amy was inherently existent, the way I often feel, okay, and the way you might impute on me, solidly existent, Amy, teaching, whatever, is when I came out, I was barely born in a delivery room, right? But in the delivery room when I came out, everyone in the delivery room would have been, it's Amy. But what came out was baby girl. And then my parents labeled Amy on that. You know, so there's always, so again, everything can be further broken down as well. If you're looking for inherent existence, here's another way to think about it. If you're looking for inherent existence, and this is what we do in emptiness meditation, you have a sense of the I, of yourself. So especially, did you ever notice when you're really scared, you almost hit somebody in a car, and there's this rush of adrenaline that goes through you, right? You heard something about your kid was in a car accident, there's this, so you want to catch that I, that feeling. It'll grab you here, and you want to hold that in a part of your mind. You're at the doctor waiting and you might be getting a cancer diagnosis and you're on heightened alert. That eye is on heightened alert. That's the eye you want to go after. And it's big and bold. It's not some subtle thing you're looking for. It dominates us. When you're really angry with someone, did you ever notice? If some of you have anger, if that's one of your issues, you're really angry with someone. I used one time, and this was years before the Dharma, but I've used it in meditations. I found a wonderful parking. I was visiting a friend. His sister broke her leg, and I was going to the hospital to see them. And for some reason, my boyfriend and I had this rental car in Manhattan, if you can imagine. Try parking in Manhattan. Good luck. And I found the perfect parking space across from the hospital. Like, I couldn't believe I'm like, look. And I pulled up to back in, and somebody pulled in the space. This guy that wouldn't, and it was like this, like unbelievable came out. This was long before I met the Dharma, but I just remember this, like, I wanted to bite his head off. I can just remember this feeling of like, so I use that, like suddenly, this thing that totally takes you over, if that's something you can get a grasp of. It could be fear, anger, and that I comes up really strongly, okay? It's that I that dominates our whole existence, all of our experiences. So what I'm going to do is hold that in a part of my mind, and that I, because I feel it, you'll feel it in your chakras, in your body. You feel gripping here. You feel it in your chest. Sometimes you get a headache. That's all your energy centers are activated. So then I have to be able to find it somewhere. It exists. So in the meditation, you look in the body and mind for it very skillfully, very skillfully. And what happens is, I might say, I feel it in my chest, like when you get scared, you feel this, so then I go, okay, so you have to find it in the chest. What's here? Well, there's tissue, then there's a breastbone, tissue, fluids, breastbone, heart, lungs, aorta, and so there's only one I that I'm feeling, that I'm experiencing. So in order to find it, I have to find the same thing as that I in my body. So there's one aorta. Maybe it's my aorta, but the aorta is made up of parts. Which part? Top, bottom, inside, outside, right? All part. I go, my heart. I think it's my heart. Well, that's made up of parts. Which part of the heart? And then you go, I think it's that part of the heart. Well, that can be further broken down. Further broken down. Every single thing in the body, it's physical, can be further broken down. Right? Einstein was way ahead. He knew about emptiness. He knew about emptiness. If you read his writings, there used to be what we had, this fundamental building block, an atom, when I was a kid. Now then there was a quark. Now it's smaller, minute particles. They keep breaking it down, and they'll continue to break it down, okay? So the lower schools say there is a fundamental building block, okay? Vaivashika school, first philosophical tenet school, Vaivashika school, Hinayana school says, fundamental building block that does exist, partless particle. Partless particle. Think about a partless particle. Partless particle. Okay. If something doesn't have parts, it's partless. If it has no parts, how does it sit? It will collapse on itself. But you have to think about this. But they believe that's inherently existent. And a lot of us live like, we think there is a fundamental building block to everything. But really, the highest school, everything will be further broken down. You will never find that essential I in the body. And then you look in the mind, you go, must be my mental consciousness. That seems pretty innate with the mind, with the I. I think it must be in my mental consciousness because I'm thinking and that's what thinks. But we would say mental consciousness is made up of moments of mind. It's got parts, many moments of mind. And you go, well, I think it's the present moment of mind. That's made up of parts, a beginning, middle, and end of the present moment. So I go, it's the middle. Well, the middle has a beginning, middle, and an end. And a beginning, it's ad infinitum. There's nothing there. That's the thing. And you get to a point where there is no I. I'm in the meditation, right? And that inherent, strong, existing I, you come to an absence. That's emptiness, the absence, the lack of that inherently existing I. It's a little scary at that moment. It's a good sign. If you suddenly are like, there's no I, it doesn't exist. there's an old, in the ancient texts, they have a thing in the Lam Rim books where in the emptiness part, and they'll have like one of the monks grab this is called a donka, this shirt, grab the lapel in the emptiness meditation to make sure he was there. And so the joke was like Thubten Tashi found the eye on the lapel of his donka, that because it can be a little unnerving that there's nothing there, according to the highest school. And I mentioned before, so a dear monk friend of mine, years ago, we were living at our center in Vajrapani, and we went to the movies one night. Came out of the movies in the parking lot, analyzing a tree. It's what monks and nuns do on their day off, right? We're analyzing a tree in the parking lot. How does a tree exist? And I said, I know, but if I put the car in drive and drive forward, I will damage the car and hit the tree. And what is there? What is out there? Like to us, it looks like tree. To an ant, it looks like something different. Tiny insect. So I even said with this, the reason there's no inherently existent pen there at all, according to the highest school, it's merely labeled by the mind pen. According to human consciousness, humans in this room, this part of the world, merely labeled pen by us, and then the pen comes into existence. Pen arises based on the label, parts, conditions. Okay. The reason there's no inherently existent pen there at all is if I throw it on the floor and a dog comes in, it's a chew toy. Dog consciousness labels it something different. So these are things you can play with to kind of go, okay, so the ant's going to see the tree differently. And then, in us talking about what is there, though? Because there seems to be some energy there from its side. What is there? According to the highest school? Are you ready? A mere label. A mere designation. And I'll give you synonyms. A mere imputation is all that exists out there. That's scary. And then you go, wow, look how dramatic my life is and all the stuff I'm consumed with, and none of it exists inherently. So it gives you a gentler, more spacious approach to how do I want to deal with stuff. I want to engage positively with as many people as possible, with myself, engage and understand when I get into a problem that my mind is coming from my mind. What is my mind telling me? I don't want to repeat this problem too many more times. May I learn from this and engage as gently as I can, as compassionately as I can, so that those seeds go into my consciousness, considering that person doesn't exist inherently as a jerk, even though I'm labeling that. But no, really, and you can say, I really realize, and I'm not seeing the whole picture. And the meditation we did, I believe, Thursday, dealing with a difficult person, you can listen again. We've done it before in here. Of considering other aspects of that person, considering they're multifaceted. There's much more about them I'm not seeing because ignorance doesn't permit me to see. So these are all the things that you add in. Does that make sense?
Very much, yeah.
Okay, and then one more question, then we're going to take a break. Rebecca.
Yeah, so Venerable Amy, thank you. Can you talk about how, so mind changes from moment to moment. So how do we, without not permanence, but without a more concrete mind or soul or Atman, how then karma, which is immutable, but we can purify it, how does karma and habit go from lifetime to lifetime? If the mind is, do you see what the confusion that I'm having? So
Keep coming, you're getting there. You're getting there.
I know in some schools mind is the only permanent thing, but if we're saying that mind is the individual consciousness, like we don't have collective consciousness, but we have individual consciousness. So in a rebirth, it's a totally different, like you may, be the seahorse that you talked about, but
Let's
you're-
hope not.
Right,
Okay.
no, but so your karma is still, maybe that it's not, it can't activate in the same way in a seahorse as in a human, but it's still with you. But so, and from a human rebirth to another human rebirth, habits you may
Mhm.
have the same habits.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's a little, I'm not clear on this differentiation of taking things with us, if you will.
So basically, the karmic propensities or seeds, imprints, and they're sometimes handled a bit differently, but they are stored in the most subtle consciousness, is where they imprint. Again, the mind exists on 3 levels: gross, subtle, most subtle. Body exists gross, subtle, most subtle. The imprints are stored, and what reincarnates is the most subtle consciousness, the clear light nature of our minds, which is something we're not usually used to. And I like Bob Thurman's words of, it's inconceivable, the clear light nature, till you are in higher levels of meditation. He calls it brilliant transparency. I kind of like that idea, clear light nature, but this brilliance of illumination and luminosity in a sense. So the karmic seeds are stored there and go on. So the habits will come, but then you've got karmic seeds, and maybe it just causes you to take form as an animal, but there's still why some animals are more highly intelligent than other animals. And animals, and you'll see sometimes with animals, certain things they'll do that I had a very strange thing. I was just talking to my cousin yesterday of my aunt passed away before my uncle in Israel. We were hoping that wouldn't happen because she was managing everything, and he was really lost without her, and some years ago. But within a few months, a white dove turned up on his porch and lived with him for months. And I was kind of convinced it was my aunt. I mean, it was just too uncanny. And you don't want your aunt to come back as a bird and things, but I think she just had to finish something out due to her attachment to him. It was just too clear. I mean, she showered with him. The bird showered with him and had ways of waking him up the exact same way my aunt would. So I'm like, for me, look, when I heard this story, they made a documentary about it in Israel called The Birdman. You can watch it, about my uncle. And it's a beautiful, heartwarming, about, and then one day finally the bird left and I think she was done. But so again, you'll have imprints, but then imprints because she was acting, had habits of like how she'd wake him up was in the mind stream, the same way that, knocking on the bed the way she would do or something, it's just uncanny of things. So those imprints are there and then they dictate, but sometimes a stronger one getting you into an animal rebirth, throwing karma, is stronger and manifests and you come back as an animal, or sometimes as great throwing karma throws you into the next rebirth, come back as a human, but then some completing karma not so great. So I don't know if that answers why the habits are there, or
I think I'll just have to get some realizations to get to really, it just seems, it's just literally inconceivable, like the whole storing of the seeds. It's like, because, in teachings, we have so many different analogies, it's like coins in a box, or it's like, where are all these seeds and on this, like, how do
Well,
they
I've-
exist?
I mean, I've asked 3 lamas now, how does the karmic imprint take place?
Yes.
I wanted to know, how does it imprint?
And on what?
I've never gotten any answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah, they've all gone on about it. It's like an automatic process, it seems like, but I want to know how it happens.
Is
You know,
it
but-
really important to know?
Yes, yeah.
Is it
Is it?
really important? to know?
Obviously not if they didn't,
Obviously.
I mean, I asked Rinpoche once. Never quite got the full, like, it just seems to be, so I don't think it's that
I
important.
mean, you wouldn't have any control over that.
That's right, exactly. So I don't know if it's just more about knowing that the better imprints are going to create happiness, so I know what those are.
Right.
We know to stay away from 10 non-virtues, and most of know what's good stuff and what's bad stuff. So I think that's what's more important. And we're having enough trouble practicing that, right?
Right.
So do I need to know the intricate thing like that? I mean, it would be neat. I'll keep asking and things. And so I don't know if you're asking about that imprint storage process. I mean, they're somehow the subtle consciousness, clear light nature, which is something is inconceivable. We don't know what that's like, has this ability. So, and what happens is when you're dying, you want to recognize the clear light manifestation. So if you're meditating a lot, you can, right? If we're not meditating a lot and familiarizing our mind with that, we'll miss it. It happens every night when we fall asleep. because the mind goes into a more subtle space. The clear light's there, but we miss it, you know. And so what'll happen is the more we can meditate, and then when you're actually actively dying and all this is going, you're less encumbered. And if you're trained, you're less encumbered with this. You don't have to deal with the body anymore. You don't have to deal with your property taxes or fixing the lawn or it's over. It's over. So you let all that go. But what happens for the ordinary consciousness is if you're a meditator, you're going, okay. You know, and I remember something that impressed me that'll stick with me through this life of my kind of spiritual father, Geshe Lama Lundrup, who was the abbot of Kopan, one of my dear teachers. He's now reincarnated. He's about 11 or 12, and I've spent some time with him at Kopan. He's beautiful. And Lundrup Rigsel, I think they've named him now, and he's a darling child. But so in his last life, when he was dying, his attendant told me individually when he was passing away and exactly what happened. And they even recorded this story, but the attendant, like, we went out to lunch and he was telling me, and then he said at the end, and Lama Lundrup looked up and said, okay, so now I need to meditate on emptiness and remember emptiness. So what you're trying to do in that more subtle state, and you may not be able to speak and things, is in your meditations, meditate on emptiness, because in the clear light, you want to get there. The mind in its most subtle experience is the best way to meditate on emptiness. And from there, you can have higher realizations at the death time. That's why meditators look forward to the death time. It's a transition. It's a stronger transition. They say like a changing of clothes, but if you're geared for it and prepared and habituated, you're going to be like, okay. Then there was Lama Lundrup. Okay, so now I need to meditate on emptiness. And I went, oh. So he was reminding himself as well, great, but that's what we want to use that clear light mind for at that point. That would be more important for me than how is it imprinting and it's more like just remember, do your emptiness meditation, and having the mind soaked with that, habituated with that, is going to just help you in the transition and in your next rebirth, if that's what's on your mind. Also, tonglen meditation, incredibly powerful. Tonglen meditation, like that. So, and we're going to do that after the break. But incredible one to at least have habituated on your consciousness when you're dying if you can't do anything else. You know, this huge space of mind to think, in my suffering, in my death, my aging, whatever I'm going through, my cancer, can I take on all the other beings suffering like this and just offer everybody happiness and good health and all the joy I've ever experienced, and just give it away like that. And that's a fantastic mindset to die in. I don't know if that helps, so. So let's take a break, and why don't we take, and we're not going to blah blah on the break, we're going to use this time wisely. Let's take 15 minutes, good, or 20 minutes? Okay, if you want to have a snack, let's take 20 minutes. If you want to have a snack, make some tea, go to the bathroom. And what I'd like you to do is focus, think about again, when you notice, how does that I exist? Do you ever notice, like, if you need to go to the bathroom, I want the key, I would need to go, I want to, notice that the dominance, notice everything as a product, like that. Look at your own habits, discuss with other people. Maybe you meet a buddy at the break time and say, look, you know, I need some help with my practice. Do you want to talk? And you set up how you want to talk. Do you want to text once a day, once a week, once a month? Do you want to read a certain book? You sort it how you want to figure it out. See? So keep it on, what can you lessen in your practice? What habits? What would help enhance to get a little practice going? Like that. Thank you. Thank you. So this is your chance. Got a nice group of people here. Okay. So
Where in North Carolina is there a
the center's outside of Raleigh. Yeah, it's a really nice center as well. So I'm going to go on with some more practical things too of our buoyancy. How do we keep, what do we just do in everyday life? We've talked about emptiness a bit. We've talked about bodhicitta Tuesday and Thursday nights. And again, as some of you just said to me at the break time, you've heard all this, you've heard it all before, and now you need to do the work. Sorry, I can't do it for you. That's the hardest part, is getting started or staying started, staying motivated. That's why it's helpful when you talk with some other maybe students here that have been around a little longer. And, you know, they can be like, look, here's what you need to do. So if you're new, no problem. You're in the right place, but it's really helpful. And think about it for your offering to the planet, your offering to your family or your community, like that, really helpful. And then again, a little bit more from Pema Chodron of this talking about how can I, this was yesterday, how can I feel comfortable? And I'll just read it again. How can we live wholeheartedly in the face of impermanence, knowing one day we're going to die? What's it like to realize, this is the part I like, we can never completely and finally get it all together? Okay. So and is it possible to increase our tolerance for instability and change? Because then you're calmer, you're more spacious, you know these kind of things. And think about, you will never, and I promise you, you'll never have it all together, okay? As far as mundane stuff, all the samsaric stuff, because that's samsara's nature. As soon as you get this together, something else is gonna, that's its nature. But what you can get together is enlightenment, is a practice that's gonna move you along that path. That you can get together and maintain consistently. It'll take great effort, but you can do it. But all those other things, you know, I'm just looking at the age I am in this life of each little thing. And my brother and I sometimes talk about, and there's certain things we discussed in the past we were going to do and stuff. And then he and I were just like, yeah, we kind of let go of that now. That's not going to happen. Like it's just too much, you know, on a mundane level. Sometimes you just go, nah. So we're never going to have all that together. And we can just let that go. But how do I, so this discomfort associated with groundlessness, okay. And so again, think about uncertainty and change, your relationship with that. And then with the fundamental ambiguity of being human, that's what it means to be human. It's a groundless situation in samsara, okay? And it comes from our attachment to wanting things to be a certain way, So think about you engage in whatever activity. It could be a simple dinner with your family. You come in, but it's not always going that way, is it? It's not always, the food's a little cold, this person's late, they're not showing up, this person ended up consumed with a certain conversation they needed to have that you didn't really want to get into. That's life. It can be as simple as that. How am I with it? Am I adaptive, resilient, gentle, peaceful? So these are some practical things I just wanted to talk about in relation to setting that up that relate to the Dharma, okay? You can try these, you can place them and let me just see how many of these, because you can kind of move it out. How many of these are there? I think I've done it over a month. Technically there's 25. So you could take a month, you practice one a month. You practice, one a day, just see. You might just decide to do one for 2 days, if it works for you. Some of them are gonna be your thing. You hear it and you go, oh my God, I need to do that. Okay, let me start day one. No worry. Are you a worrier? Okay, yes, okay, something. Okay, when we worry, let's think about it. Think about the process of worrying. And I've done other workshops in here dealing with difficult emotions. Okay, and we talk about, first of all, understanding the nature of worry, which relates to fear and anxiety, which then relates on a deeper scale to panic attacks, which I know several people that have those. Okay, so you want to understand, but you have to analyze what you're really worried about. And you also want to look at your mind when you worry. It's not constructive, it's deconstructive when you're worrying. You're ruminating obsessively without any healthy remedy. Concern has a remedy. Concern's different than worry. Concern takes action, healthy, and again, with worry, okay, we make problems bigger than what they really are. Okay, right? In the rumination, it becomes huge. It's a little thing. And sometimes when you spill it out to someone else, they lend perspective to it. Perspective. That was the first of the 8 components of joy. You know, in the Book of Joy, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, perspective. You know, you reframe something. So sometimes you need to talk to someone else and they go, well, that's okay. Here's another way to think about it. So you want to analyze yourself. Am I making this bigger than it is? Obsessively waking yourself up at night. Okay. So instead of worrying, okay, and this is from Master Shantideva again. I mentioned this the other day, and His Holiness quotes this again and again. Ask yourself, what can I do about it? What can I do about this situation? So I'm worried about something. Here's the issue. Can you do anything about it? What can you do? And I'm going to say, with compassionate wisdom, have a good motivation. What can I do about it? Big motivation. What can I do? Figure out what you can do if you need to list it. What can you do? And then take action. Can you take action? Okay. And then you come to a space where you've analyzed, I can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about it. Then we practice letting go. I've already checked. There's nothing I can do about it. Nothing I can do about it. Okay? So again, instead of worrying, accept whatever you have no control over, right? Sometimes we can't do anything about it. Okay? Prepare whatever you can. Okay? And what about choosing happiness instead of worry once in a while? So if you're noting the worrying mind, just take a break, a conscious break, and say, I know I'm going to worry, and actually what I'm going to do is in 10 minutes, I'm going to make the time to worry. I'm worried now, but what I'm going to do is just insert some happy thoughts, happy ideas, sending these people that I'm worried about love, and you take a break and you insert something else in. Okay, you have to actually strongly kind of do it. So we've talked before in here, thought interruption, thought replacement. You know, there's one old friend I know had long-term chronic depression. So she would create a visualization for herself. When she noticed some triggers in the mind suddenly going into the depression state, and she was on medication, so working with her therapist, working with me, and she had this thought. She created her own visualization, something happy. You create that yourself. What is your happy place? Create that visualization. It's hard to visualize sometimes. So slowly just visualize, what would that happy place be? Hers was simple, but this was hers. She was in a small room full of puppy dogs. But really, she created it. That made her happy. But a small room, she could quickly put her mind in there. She'd notice the worry coming. She'd feel her heart racing, shallow breathing. She'd try to hold her mind in that room. Little puppy dogs, little tails wagging, little fuzzy furry things jumping on her, you know, their little smiley faces. Okay, trying to hold her mind. The worry would come, she'd bring her mind back. Meditation, bring her mind back slowly. So again, whatever the visualization is, you create, you know, and again, the 4 immeasurables are a great way to cut, you know, just in your heart, visualize you got the Buddha in your heart, light rays pouring out, you know, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. You breathe in, you breathe out. The exercises we did yesterday. You breathe in, I feel uncomfortable, I breathe out, uncomfortable. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Light rays pouring out of my heart, all beings, immeasurable love. Countless beings, they're immeasurable, countless beings. Love, radiance pouring out of me, pouring out. Keep your mind focused there. Here comes the worry, all this stuff, not useful, not constructive. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Breathe in and breathe out. You have to try that. Just some examples, okay? Helpful for the worriers? Maybe you try? And then maybe you come up with some other techniques as well, but really help. Okay, here's another one, day 2. I love this one. Slow down, relax, okay? Slow down, relax. We're not used to this in the United States of America. There's an idea about productivity, okay? And another time in other classes, I quoted some Brené Brown, okay? She has these guideposts for wholehearted living. You've heard these before, but I love this one. See if I can find this. Okay, I love this one. You cultivate play and rest. Okay. Letting go of, I don't know if this is you, exhaustion as a status symbol and productivity as self-worth. Is that you? Because that used to be me. And then there's people that have a mantra when you talk with them. How are you doing? I'm exhausted. All the time. I mean, it's become, but it's a habit. It's a habit, but really think if that's you. Like, I actually got to the point where it's not funny anymore when I hear this person, like, is that where you want to be? You want to be exhausted all the time? Sometimes we're tired. Yeah, I get it. Take a rest. When years ago when I was at Vajrapani, these people sent me to this nutritionist nearby, and she worked with it, and so she said, 10 minutes a day, get horizontal. That wasn't anything, I'm not a napper. So for me, in the middle of the day, to be horizontal, 10 minutes with my feet up, she goes, no, and later in life, it became no phone in that space. It's great. I'm not sleeping necessarily. There might be a time, a little conk out of a power nap, but I put my feet up, and the thoughts are going, and I just let it go, and I don't need to do anything right now. It can be 10, 15, 20 minutes. I love it. It's fantastic. I deserve it. It's okay. I'm busy, but make that time. It's okay to do that. You will get more done if productivity is your thing. And then productivity as self-worth. Let me tell you all the things I did I still have a terrible habit of that. Terrible habit. I think I'm in recovery, but I'm not sure, but it's crazy. I mean, sometimes I notice, and I really got this hit recently in California when I was moving back, where I jammed up moments. I inserted these extra things as a little contest for myself. Let's see if you can do it. Like at the end, I just realized this is a habit. This is a habit. I'm really working on, nope, we're not going to add another thing. Not adding another thing right now. So again, think about slow down, relax. Stress may appear to get things done in the short term. When you feel stressed, I got to do it faster. I've got to do many things. I'm going to multitask to get through. But in the long term, it leads to exhaustion and burnout. Okay. So if you can learn to slow down, okay, let the relaxation come up, okay, and you'll actually end up getting more done. I don't multitask much anymore. It's one thing at a time. I do that thing, and we'll talk later. I have another thing on here about time management. Question.
Yeah, what comes to mind when somebody asks me how I am, it's always busy.
Yes.
And, and I'm thinking, it's got to be something better. Plus, what's behind busy is not so great. So, if you could have an idea for a more honest and maybe answer.
Yeah. So I think it's the same thing when you notice, and a lot of us are busy. So there is, I notice I'm a little overscheduled this year. I knew that. And then it was very cute. The people when I left Vermont, the students wanted me to talk to this psychic astrologer. They sent me to the sessions. She's great, this woman. So I recently talked to her in this thing, and then she said, oh, yeah, you're overscheduled, but you can do it. It's going to take effort, but you got it. And then she said, but when you go back to Pennsylvania, she said, don't add anything. You're going to get asked to do that. She goes, don't, make sure so the busyness, when I'll say it's busy, can I change that terminology and just use something else of life is full. It adds a different dimension that, because you get used to, this person got used to, I'm exhausted. So I was, and I had a conversation with them about it. I'm like, are you happy to be exhausted all the time? That's all you say. Is there another way you want to be? So maybe you change the word. Life's pretty full right now. I have a full plate like that, but it's not spilling over yet. And then look underneath behind. Can you get a little of the 10-minute feet up reclining one, and just let it be and insert, and then look at can you schedule less perhaps? Are you looking at where you're, what I noticed for me was when I cleaned out the house during COVID, my parents' house, I found some childhood diaries of my own from 6 years old, right? Yeah, 6 years old, these little booklets, the kind that had the little key. Remember those? Give to little girls. So I found them and I was reading through and I saw at 6 years old I was overscheduled. At 6 years old, I could see. So it's a habit, and I obviously came in from another life with it. I could see imprints. Like it wasn't just my mother driving me, there was things of me having the habit, having that habit of doing, and sometimes running centers for Rinpoche would ask me in the running center, then he'd ask me to do another project on top many times. Then Rinpoche said to me once, because time is very relative, so the Potala already exists. His Holiness's palace in Tibet, the Potala Palace is there. But Rinpoche one time said to me, you're going to help me build the Potala. Like this, like it was really funny. It was like, but it already exists. And then I went, okay, like that's going to be busy. That'll be a full time, right? With some lifetime that. But again, I just realized the habit. So I'm working slowly to reduce, that consciously reduce things where I am saying no, I realize I cannot do anymore, and I'm okay with that. And you might want to look under the busyness. Is it a FOMO situation, fear of missing out? I don't have a lot of that going on. It's just more like, oh, well, this person needs some help. I want to help. But some people, it's like they can't miss anything. They need to be a part of it. That's exhausting. And in samsara, you can't do it all. You can't do it all. We just were seeing Ling Rinpoche and up in New York, and then people go, oh, you're going to go to Boston? I was actually free that weekend, and I looked at it, and then I was like, no, we're not going. That's too much. So there's things I could have pushed things. So see if under it, is it fear of missing out? Are people being overbearing on your time, and are you not great about setting boundaries? Could be another thing. Do you need help with that?
And then
No, go ahead.
fear of missing out, right? The fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out.
I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Have joy of missing out.
The joy of missing out instead of the fear of missing out. Like the joy, thank you. The joy of missing out is you have more space.
Thank you.
I don't need to be sometimes at that thing, or, it's okay. You can't do it all. You can't. There was something when I got ordained, there's certain things that I would have been obligated as a layperson to attend a certain party or something, or to meet these people at a bar, if I wasn't there. But as a nun, I don't go to bars. I'm not interested in going to bars. It's just not a place I feel that comfortable. And now it depends, it's different. I don't mind people drinking. You can order a drink at a restaurant, but just, so after a while, I didn't have to go to those things anymore, and I had more space, more time, and I just and they could tell me later what happened there. I didn't really feel, if it was something where there were people I wanted to see in a certain thing, then I could evaluate, but you can't do it all. So just choose the more valuable things that are really are most meaningful to you, if that's helpful. But it's hard. It's again, habit. So you're trying to create a new habit. You dip your toe and try a little bit, right? You had a question?
No, something that I observed when COVID hit. I was really I enjoyed the fact that I didn't have to go out so much with my friends and all that. I liked just, and not having to make up some excuse or not having to say no, but then when it came back, when some of the pandemic kind of quieted down, and now I find that on my calendar, I cut stuff every day.
Yeah, I think the privileged few of us, like everybody in this room during COVID, most of us, I hate to say kind of enjoyed the space and time, so why not try to build some in your regular life right now and just make it a little bit, you can do it. And again, be that habit where every day is, and just see, I did a thing when I moved to San Francisco years ago. It got suddenly the calendar, I didn't know anybody there. And then you start meeting people, and then I had a job and I socialized with people from work and all this. And then I noticed suddenly the calendar was full. when I had all this space, you know, so it was really full. And then I had this thing where Friday night was my night. I scheduled it, my night, alone, myself, you know, whatever I wanted to do that night. Usually I was home having a bath, you know, San Francisco, you have those big bathtubs, you know, I always love that. But just, I made sure and I actually put it on my calendar. So unless there was something very unique going on that night where that was the night and that was the birthday party on that night, but that was my night. So put it on your calendar that it's, and it means it can be time to do nothing. You don't need to schedule it, you just do nothing. You know, you putter around, you're having a little meal, something like that. Now it's more challenging when people have families, people they live with, responsibilities. But you can build in some time, you know, some you time like that even. So see if you can exercise that a little bit and you try your best, right? Stephen, you
I
had,
think we're a lot like many people have many things to do throughout the day. You can't get them all done. So I have the luxury of being able to select one or two. I do that well. At the end of the day, I'm satisfied. I had a good day.
yep, that's right. Just, you know, reduce. One of the things I did was at Vajrapani, when I lived there, it was in the woods. So getting out was very hard. And I started to have a thing where on the day off, I'd go out once a week. So it was really like working and then being in retreat. And once a week, I'd come out and do all my errands. But what happened is the list was too long. And then as the director, mostly we're going to bump into somebody that came to the center, and then they were going to have to tell me about a program they wanted done or something they thought I should be doing, you know, and I wanted to have time for people and maybe a cup of tea with somebody. So I started getting used to looking at what I put on the list and then splitting it in half and I'm just going to do half. Because I kept having this long list, and every time I'd meet someone, I'd be like, oh, I don't have, I'm sorry, I'm really in a rush right now. And so and it felt better when I had more time. And then if I didn't run into anybody, then I could go space out at the ocean and, you know, have a little time like that. Or I build in my time where that was on my schedule that I was going to have a half an hour walk by the ocean or something like that. Okay. So let me go to the next solution focus. 3, the solution focus. Okay. Making things positive doesn't mean just a sunny outlook. It can mean making the choice to see problems as an opportunity. This is Lama Zopa Rinpoche teaching. You know, he has the book, Transforming Problems into Happiness. So higher level Lojong teachings, when you're really welcoming problems. And people go, well, I'm not going to get to that point. No, you really can welcome problems. They transform your mind a little more radically. If you're a practitioner, if you're able to handle that and hold that. Transform problems. So problems will always come in samsara. What's my attitude towards it? Am I caving in on myself, collapsing, anxiety attacks, panic, depression, anxiety, over-anxiety, or am I lashing out at other people, snapping at people, yelling at my partner, my kids, you know, coworkers and stuff like that? So the problem comes, open your eyes, you know, what is this teaching me? This is coming from my mind. I want to respond generously, compassionately. Generously, again, remember generosity yesterday, those 4 circuits to mental balance. And generosity was the 4th one, having a generous attitude. So how can I respond generously? And generosity to myself, some balance, some space, to figure out, this is an opportunity, what do I need to do right now? What do I need to do? Every problem and difficult situations embedded has a solution, okay? And what about making the solution an adventure? What about making it an adventure? We don't think like that. We think problem, get away, okay? But they're gonna come up. So for me, one of the things that comes up is when I'm poked, Pema Chodron's thing is lean into the sharp edges. That's your practice. That's your practice. It's not gonna be smooth. This is here about, you know, just being positive is a sunny outlook. That's not samsara. Sometimes it's good. I'm happy for you. That's wonderful. That's where we're headed. But then there's a poke, there's a sharp edge. So when we shirk away and I run away, oh, I don't want that. But the sharp edge is there. Maybe there's a learning opportunity. So I get curious now. Like if somebody irritates me, if I notice a bubble of irritation arise in a certain situation, I get curious. That's the word I use. Instead of like, oh, they're so irritating, or, oh, I'm irritated again. Or I'm kind of like, I wonder why I'm irritated. What's this person showing me? Do I ever do that? Wow, I wonder if I irritate people like that. Like, it just so many things. Get curious. And then this solution, how do I want to deal with this? I've given a lot of different techniques over the few days, but make it an adventure. That's why with your buddy, you can go on an adventure. You're trekking. Okay? But it can get interesting, and you're going to try different antidotes. That's what makes it exciting. You learn, you're bigger, you can help turn somebody onto it. You know what worked for me is this. Okay? I find that really helpful. Here's a day 4. From expectations to acceptance. We talked about expectations yesterday. So sometimes getting on with people is tough, okay? And especially when they don't fulfill our expectations. Okay. What did you layer an expectation on somebody? They're doing the best they can, but suddenly I have this hope for you, which is based on my self-cherishing, what you're going to do for me, what I need right now. That's really limited. It's really limited. I'm not experiencing them of the whole scope of who they are. So if I can just accept people the way they are without expecting them to be something they're not, okay, less disappointment, less frustration. And see the whole person. When we talk to people sometimes, you come to the center. I've interacted with people, and sometimes, you might feel, oh, I should go over and talk to this woman or this person. But you're like half listening because you're not overly interested. But there's a whole person there. When you're really actively listening and you find out really interesting things about them, and you go, oh, that's so cool that you're doing that. So are you a good active listener with people? Engaging the whole person, seeing the whole person. And there are people that, I mentioned this, I think yesterday, but who do we keep in the shadow? You don't really pay attention or see, and who is in the prime light for us? And I mentioned this before, maybe Thursday night, of how I noticed my niece was a server for a while in Philadelphia, waiting tables, right? So she told me stories, which led me to say, can you get out of that business, please? Because we treat servers horribly sometimes. I've seen people, you're like, this is a human being. She'd tell me these stories like that. So again, the server, how do we deal with people? And I mentioned your postal delivery people, your people that pick up your trash people. And these were what we called in the pandemic, the essential workers, people that mop the hospitals. We can't function without any of these people. They are essential. They've always been. But essential people, we keep in the shadow. We don't tend to really focus on, they have a family, how are they doing? What's their, whole person there, like that. So that acceptance, that can be really helpful to open the mind to bigger space here. Day 5, number 5. Fear nothing. Fear nothing, okay? And what I'd say is you've kind of got, in general, Dharma practice, it can be you're facing something, awareness, like that. Then I'm noticing what's happening, I'm going to explore a little bit. Analytical, our analysis. I'm noticing irritation arises. There's my curiosity. I wonder what's going on. Why is this triggering me? What's happening? Okay. Then there's a level of I'm going to apply whatever antidote I have, whatever I'm able to do, my practice, and accept. Leave the space, accept, okay? And then from there, in a good, better space, more balanced, then I respond. Then I may need to respond to something, okay? So if I'm doing all that, right, there's not a whole lot I need to worry about, to fear like that. And other than our general protection, you're not going to leave your door open all night, or leave, there's certain protections we have, and I noticed in the neighborhood I'm living in now outside Philadelphia, it's a relatively safe neighborhood, but some of the neighbors have gotten the doorbell cameras, outside. I forget what they're called, but and I remember one of them, and I kind of thought, do I need to get that? Is that, generally, I also have my own little camera because I've got a retired couple directly across the street, and they watch everything. So they're often telling me, yeah, it's like the best. You know, my sister said, it's really good. They're retired, and they're always telling me, oh, we saw the deer, and they took pictures of the deer on the front steps, and they took pictures your lilacs are blooming, and so I'm like, that's my doorbell camera. But when you see this, there's a little charge of like, do I need to protect more? But again, mostly with my mind. If the mind's pretty balanced, again, karmic stuff's going to arise. You protect yourself and your family as best as you can. But again, mostly what I want to do is protect myself from delusion in my mind. That's Dharma practice. So again, if I'm using it through my basic awareness, analyzing and exploring, applying an antidote and accepting, and then moving on, acting, responding from there, can cut a lot of the fear for us. I'm doing the best I can with my mind, like that. And the other thing is, so then we've got this thing called laziness and procrastination. So I mentioned to some of you, go to the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive online, lywa.org. All of Rinpoche and Lama's teachings are categorized by topic. And Rinpoche has teachings on laziness and procrastination. Read those if that's your issue. So, so can I move beyond the inertia? I can't get my practice started. The hardest part's getting started. Just find a way to start. Get something started, something small. Like I said, I came home from work for this place. I didn't really even have an altar set up, but I had this little place and I would just sit. And I just sit. There was nothing there. I'd just be like, okay, now what? But I got into the habit of using that space and sitting there and letting the mind empty. That's how it started. No real instruction, and then slowly, and then I started going to a center and I started getting some instruction. And I was like, well, let me try that. We did that over the weekend. Let me try that. Let me get this book. And that's how it grew from there, okay? So you just have to push through. Okay, and think about, you're going to discover your true, your pure potential. Don't you want to do that? Right? That's the whole thing is just think about, I can be better. I can be a little bit better, a little more generous with my family, a little bit more spacious with my kids, a little bit more. I can be an example for people in my workplace. I can get out of these habits and start developing that true potential. That's available. It's going to take some effort. I remember when my mom had a minimally invasive heart surgery, and then she got very depressed after that. And we had this wonderful doctor outside Philadelphia. So my dad and my mom and I met with him. And this is the kind of doctor but he sat down to talk to her, not about her heart, her depression, and really sat and said, it's a normal byproduct of heart surgery for some people to get depressed. We didn't know this. We said, oh, okay. And he said, so what would you like to resume of your activities? Because she said, I don't feel like doing anything. I can't do. He said, what would you like to resume? And one of the things she mentioned was driving. She hadn't been driving. And so we discussed it. All four of us discussed and he said, well, what do you think would take for you to, and she said, I need someone to drive with me that's patient, can sit in the passenger seat while I go through the motions and get familiar again. Discussed it with my dad and me, and I was like, I can do that. I'm happy to do that with you. And so discussing setting up a proper thing with her of getting her past the inertia. We're going to do this. And then sometimes she didn't want to go, and I'd say, what about this afternoon, Mom? What about in a couple hours? You rest, but then so she could kind of gear her mind up. We're going to do it. And then I said, and I made it an errand, we actually need to get milk, so why don't you drive? And if you want, I'll drive home. Or if you don't feel comfortable in the middle, you pull over and I'll drive. So it was all very slow, easy, but just get it going. Just do it. To try to and the doctor said to her, here are the options. You can go on medication for depression. And he said, but I wouldn't really advise it. And he said, or you have to push through. Because depression is the opposite. It's going to keep you hammered, tethered to the bed. I can't do. That's what depression says. No, and so we would try to, but find a good way to encourage her. So I'd say, okay, let's. Oh, this errand, I need to get this for You know, do you want to come with me? Just to get her up right now. And sometimes she'd come like that, just push through it. So same thing with our practices. Time management. How are you at time management? How's that going? Some people are really good. Nobody seems here to want to talk about it. Okay.
I think it relates to that sense of like, I'm busy or I'm exhausted because, you know, the time management isn't happening or working well.
Yeah. I mean, they have courses on time management, as you know. Like it's a whole industry, but it's super helpful. It's so helpful. It's been, some people I know are not good at it. Get help. Get somebody that can help you. Get a friend that is very organized, good with it. Because I know for me, there's things, be careful of these. Be very careful of these, but they have advantages. Okay? So when I'm doing email, I'm doing email. That's my email time. And I'll have it, I don't have a whole set schedule, but I'll know in my mind, I have a half an hour, I'm going to do email now, half an hour. I know the half an hour, I've got it. I don't need to set on the thing, but occasionally I will put it in my calendar. We're doing this, but I go, I have a half an hour, and then the phone goes, so I can see who calls. I don't need to take that call. This is my email time. You know, you can see, so if it is an important call, doctor, whatever, then you can take it, okay? But otherwise, it's not my phone call time. Then there's another time I return the phone calls or look at the texts. So then there's this lovely, my phone has it, I don't know if yours does, it's a focus button. So for me, it's set up, I swipe down, push focus, and the entire phone goes away. You don't hear my phone. I don't get the text, don't come in. I think it even sends a message sometimes to people that I'm not getting messages now. So they know not to expect, why didn't she reply? And so the phone's on, but then, so then when I need it, I can just swipe, put it on, and then all the texts come up, all the WhatsApp messages, whatever other notifications are off that I set for that. It's very easy to do. And that way then I can focus on, that's my time to do it. Time management, just, it's not any big magical mystery tour. Just, but you'd have to adhere to it. If this is your half an hour doing it, and it takes practice to set it up, because you're used to interruptions. Tell people if you live with other people, if you have kids, things like that, explain to them, you know, this is that I'm doing a yoga class now in my room. I have people that, this is my meditation time. The door shuts, I'll be out in an hour. And they know, and sometimes if I call, in the old days when you call the landline, people would answer and they go, oh no, he's meditating now, I'll tell him you call. I'll tell him to call you back when he's out. I really respected that. I'm like, right on. She's not just going to interrupt. Oh, by the way, it's so-and-so. It's like, set your boundaries with people if you can. Tell them, this is important to me. If they don't want to discuss it with you and they don't want to honor that time, leave them. I'm joking.
I can't do that.
But really explain, this is important. They'll notice as well, when you have that time, you come out, you're happier and more spacious. Happy. I've noticed that when, you know, like that. I had a funny thing, I told you, some of you, with my parents, when I came back to the East Coast and would come and visit them from Vermont. And so I'd be meditating in my room. The room doesn't have a door that really shuts. So my mother has a habit of just opening the door. So she'd see my back. I'm sitting on the bed in a certain way. You know, there's some pictures. She didn't like that. She wasn't comfortable. Meditation, it's different. It's Eastern. It was whatever it was different, you know. So then, and she would call out, what are you doing? So I'd say I'm meditating. She'd try to interrupt. So what would happen is it would be irritating. So then I'd say, I'll be done in an hour, half an hour. I'll, you know, come down and have breakfast. So then I'd come down and I'd be a little irritated with her. Couldn't you see I was meditating? Why do you know, so this went on for a little bit. So then she'd notice if she left me to meditate, I came down and was much happier, much nicer interaction with her. So she learned this over, it took some time to set it up. And then I came like a year or two later, my father's outside the door in a loud voice, you know, oh, you want to, and then I hear her out there, shh, she's meditating. She's protecting the space for me. She got it. So it might take time to set it up, but they'll, it touched my heart. I said to her, thanks for doing that. She goes, well, I knew you'd be out later, and, very sweet. Okay. So you can't control time. You can't control everything. Okay. It's your mind. You manage yourself is what you're doing. It's your mind. You're not managing other people. It's you and your mind getting control of your day with time management. So this is about you managing your life, working smarter, not harder. It should be easier when you're doing it. It's a smarter system. We have all these devices now that manage the time for us. Why not use them? It might take a little time to understand and learn how to do it, but this way you do the right things and you do them better, and you're more oriented, more space to build in that relaxation, the time. There's things that my sister got going on her. Many of you have this where you're at a computer all day, so she set things every half hour, stand up, walk around. It's better for your back. Your body doesn't want to be sitting, by the way. Some people have standing desks, so get up and walk around, move around, get up, get a drink of water. We don't drink enough. If you have to, you're in a house, by level, go downstairs, get some water, come back up. You feel refreshed. Okay, now I'll sit down again. Doesn't have to be long. Just these little things. You can set it right up so your computer interrupts time to stand up. And that way you get the best, you get the most out of the time, okay? If you take the time kind of expands. If you make the time and you build in some space, relaxation, I find it expands a little bit more than all the, There was a question. Gina, you had a question, or?
Yeah, I was thinking about what you said when we were still talking about fear nothing, and that mostly you want to protect yourself from delusion, which I found really helpful, because tying it back to, I don't want to get us off track, but the conversation on emptiness, when we're talking about the lack of an inherent self. I've heard people say, almost casually, or to me, frustratingly to me, when they say, oh, see, there's nothing to protect. And I have such a reaction to that, because it feels like there is. And I get really, it just feels very strong and solid and concrete. But I hadn't really heard the phrasing or the way you said it about what you want to protect is protect your mind from delusions. So I think that's a way to help me deal with there's nothing to protect. If protection is one of my hangups.
Yes, I think a lot of people feel vulnerable in today's world, or as you get older. I notice I feel more vulnerable as I get older, moving around the world. But here's the thing, if people were saying there's nothing to protect, be careful about nihilism. So there's two extremes with emptiness, okay? Nihilism is nothing exists, so I don't need to take care of myself, it doesn't matter. It does matter, okay? And then there's reification, the other extreme that's also incorrect, which is the way we normally see everything as inherently existent, right? The Buddha taught the middle way. So things do exist, but not inherently existent. You have to protect what does exist. Nihilism is, I'm empty, I'll step in front of the bus, it doesn't matter. The bus will kill you. Right? So there's a level we do have to protect. You have locks on your house and you lock it at night, but it doesn't have to be a major deal. And the reason is I'm going to lock the door, I'll secure my car, whatever I need to do, okay? But if the karma is there to ripen that my house gets broken into, it'll get broken into regardless. But I'm also going to do my purification practices daily, every night, Vajrasattva practice, to minimize negative things, negative karma ripening. And then I'm going to do other practices that enhance the positive qualities in my mind to help me progress along a path with as smoothness and as harmony as I can. And that's our path. Mostly what we're doing is accumulating conditions to practice and move along to enlightenment and purifying obstacles like that. So you want to have your eyes open that stuff does happen. I'll protect as much as I can within reason, so that I'm not protecting out of great fear, and because I realize that there's no point to anxiety. I'm okay. I'm contributing. I'm trying to help people. The more you think about helping others, it takes that focus off that self-cherishing, self-grasping, like that. So I don't know if that helps as well.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
So again, you do have to protect some things, but within reason, not out of paranoia and everyone's trying to get me. That doesn't help either. Because, oh, keep thinking about, in this state of paranoia, in this state of utter anxiety or depression, how many people can I help? And people that are sitting like that in their minds with tremendous guilt, obsessive worrying, I can't help others from that. And as soon as I have that other view, everything expands and I'm much happier. And all that fear and stuff can lessen. Again, when I mentioned Tuesday night, the dream, Tenzin Palmo, Jitsunma Tenzin Palmo, the dream, she was in prison. I talked about this before. I think most of you heard about yeah. So again, the prison is your self-cherishing. That's the prison. That's what keeps you in prison. And her whole thing, as soon as she had the idea, there's two people running that escaped with me, running behind me. If I stop and can't escape, she turned around and realized, oh, I forgot they're going with me, then they're going to stop. And we'll all have to go back to the prison. As soon as she had the thought of them, the prison disappeared in her dream. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think I liked that story, but like for just that reason, because I think what I'm coming to is that this whole idea of protection or controlling everything, right? You've always joked that we're trying to fix samsara, like I'm trying to control samsara, and so much of it I'm seeing is driven by self-cherishing, and not to jumble all the teachings together, but it's only about the worldly dharmas, not true dharma. You know what I mean? Like everything I'm trying to protect or control, it's,
Yeah.
it's gain, it's reputation, it's praise, it's not losing, the four corresponding,
That's right.
etc.
That's right. That's what most people are trying to control, the devices of the ego. So when you think I really Dharma practice is protecting my mind from delusion, and you're much happier. But again, I know it takes effort to get our minds into that framework, especially when we're newer, to understand, because Dharma's the adverse of, often the bodhisattva path, I've talked about this before, is the bodhisattva path. I often feel like I'm going up a mountain and everybody's streaming down in the world, and there's times you have in the beginning, especially, you're kind of like, am I going the right way? Everybody's doing this, and everybody's thinking differently. Am I going the right way? That's why you need centers and you need other Dharma practitioners to remind you and go, yeah, you're going the right way. And I'll walk along with you a little while. Then it branches off and then you find somebody else and you walk along, and that's how it works. Yeah, so it's difficult. And I wanted to, and so I'm going to pick these up in another time when I come. We're going to go continue. So think about, we got through 6 of them. And just one more that I'll add, and then I wanted to read this other thing that, here's another one. I love this one. Pack up your thoughts, please. Pack them up. What are you choosing to hold on to in your mind? Like just, we have habits of thoughts. And be very careful, because this puts thoughts in your mind, garbage that you don't need in your mind. Okay, what kind of thoughts you can always pack up the unnecessary thoughts, the negative feelings. You can visualize packing them up. And I've had things where I used to talk to them, pack away, put it out of your mind. Then you have space to create something new and positive. I used to have a thing for years, we have habits of doing something. And nice renunciation is when you get tired of a habit, a negative habit, and you go, oh, I'm so done doing this, So I remember this thought would still come, the pattern was there, and then and talk to your delusion. And I remember thinking, inside my mind, just thinking, oh, there's that recording again. Thank you so much. You've been with me for this many years, and you know what? We are finished. I'm going to delete that recording now, boop. You can have these little things. I don't need that. So as quickly as you can, recognizing the thought, can thank the thought, whatever, you've been with me all these years, you're not really benefiting me anymore. We're going to part ways here. So however you need to do that in your mind, you can visualize deleting, emptying that file, then you have more space. With our phones, when they clog up with photos and all that, and then you do a little compaction and you get rid of, and you're like, okay, I'm off again. Lots of room to add new habits. So pack up your thoughts. Then I want to, just in closing, I just wanted to read this. Some people may have, let's see if I can find this. Okay. Warrior principles. Warrior principles. This is from, I think I went to her ashram a Hindu, I think she's a Hindu teacher, Dipa Ma. There's different Ma's, and Dipa, I think I went to her ashram that, just some things to think about. I thought these might be helpful. Some of them helped me that, okay. And how to get started and how to do practice. Okay, she has some different, okay. And even with practice, if you cannot walk, then crawl to your goal. Think about it. We have these excuses. I can't do that, I'm not gonna do it, Get there anyway. Be clear about the goal, but get there any way that you can. You can do it. You can do it. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes you can walk. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're running to the goal. Great. But again, if you can't walk and your mind's saying, find a way to get there. Ask help. Get another practitioner. Get somebody else. It's possible. Do not let loss, sadness, fear, or anxiety deter you. These are just parts of samsara. Focus your mind and let meditation never leave you, okay? So even the meditation, and I call it the yogi yogini mind, this mind, when you just have a natural course of a consistent meditation practice, and it doesn't have to be long, right? You bring that with you. You bring it, it's there when you're driving. It's there when you're having dinner with your kids. It's in the supermarket with you. It's at the family gathering at Christmas. Like, you can keep that meditative space, meaning you're observing what's going on, you're observing your mind. I'm with my mind, I'm gentle with my mind, I'm gentle with others. That space, it's just that spacious awareness, like that. And I love this one. And then there's more, but we'll talk about those another time. Be fierce with all the love in your heart. So I'd like to close there, and I just want to thank everyone so much for Rebecca and Don and everybody that made this possible, for hosting me and taking care of Anthony as well, for taking care of Thubten Kunga Ling. Thank you so much. And please try to do these practices. We'll continue on another time when I can come back. And I'd like to take all the merit we've invested, all the positive energy, and invest it in our trying to incorporate some of these naturally and reasonably into our practices. Please do some practice, try to do something like that, try to build on what an already existing practice to help us get to that enlightened space, so we can be of the hugest service to all living beings, and also take ourselves out of the anxiety, depression, fear, and that self-thinking like that, so we can be more expansive for all living beings. I'd like to dedicate for the long lives of all of our precious teachers, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and for Lama Zopa Rinpoche to return to us immediately and be able to be born to a wonderful family that will allow him his full education and all the training that he needs to resume his position as the leader of the FPMT, and to be a wonderful guiding guru for so many of us like that. And for all the conflicts in the world, may they be pacified instantly. And for all the beings around the planet who need additional healing, may they receive it completely and fully. And we're going to go to some of the dedication prayers in the gold prayer book, please. And what I'd like to read is 235, and then we're going to go to Master Shanti Deva's prayer, page 235. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel, bodhicitta, that has not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samattabhadra too realize things as they are, I too dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. And then we're going to turn to, let's see, is it 246? Thank you. Master Shanti Deva, page 246. And let's send this out to the universe. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power. May people think of benefiting each other. As long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain, to dispel the miseries of the world. Previous page, page 244, the short, long life prayer for His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. Page 234. This is the prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make requests. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings you suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. So I forgot if anyone needs a card, I have some in my bag. If you need my website, amymiller.com. And again, you can find a lot of teachings there connected to the YouTube channel. And I hope to see all of you again. And if anyone's interested in November, some of the programs on my website are hybrid, so you can plug in. And then in November, if you want to take a venture and go to India, Northwest India, I'm leading a retreat, an intro retreat, 9 days, and then later a death and rebirth intermediate level for 9 days at Tushita Dharamsala. So if you want to have an experience of that, it's a great center, and it's where the Dalai Lama lives. So it's very special. It's all on my website, yeah. And that one's getting updated soon, but it should be on there. You can check in. And lovely to see all of you, and thank you so much for everything. Please be well. And if you come up, I'll give you some if you want some pills. Oh.
At this point, we're going to offer Venerable Amy a mandala offering. So
Just short, yeah.
yeah, we'll do a short mandala offering. So if everyone will remain seated for a minute, and you can turn to page 160 for the prayer.
And thank you to those of you online as well. I'm going to close my computer. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Thanks very much.